Again, my name is Yoshi, and we're so thrilled to have you all here to learn about Bob Sensei's adventures in Japan. So let's get started with our program. Let's introduce Bob Sensei. Bob Sensei, I've been calling on all these years, but we should be calling you Bob Sensei because your daytime job is an attorney and you're an immigration attorney. And in Japan, all lawyers are called sensei. So Bob-san, but Bob Sensei, please introduce yourself and what type of work you do.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Yoshi. Yeah, as you mentioned, I initially kind of my journey to Japan started after law school or actually before law school. I had lived in Japan for 2 years as a missionary. So then when I returned, and that was actually, I was working in the southern island of Kyushu, and started my first assignment was to get on a train from Fukuoka. I flew to Tokyo, then we flew to Fukuoka, and then I got on a train from Fukuoka, which is the capital of the southern island of Kyushu, and rode that train all the way down to the very southern tip of Kyushu to the city of Kagoshima. And so that was my first city. And then it was interesting now 30 years later to find out that Fukuoka would become the sister city to Atlanta. And we went back to Fukuoka with the city of Atlanta officials to celebrate that. And everybody was so surprised that I had actually lived in the city of Fukuoka for a time as well. But after Kagoshima, I was transferred to Miyazaki-ken, in the city of Hyuga. And it happened to be in the city of Hyuga where we were getting to know some of our neighbors. And there was a group of Minyo singers. Minyo is, and again, this journey to Japan is kind of tied to this music experience. Minyo is the traditional Japanese folk song. And it certainly, at the time I first heard, we were outside actually, and the group was practicing in a second floor room in a pretty good sized little home, again, in our neighborhood. And I thought, wait a minute, why does this sound so familiar and so appealing to me? Because it really does. Minyo evokes a kind of feeling, a nostalgia for home and for family. In fact, practitioners refer to Minyo as the folk song is the heart's hometown. And Nihongo de Minyo wa kokoro no furusato. So if you can believe it, I thought, I think I'd like to learn how to sing. So I had the boldness to knock on that door and say, could we come and listen to you for a few minutes? And they invited us up. They were so nice. And we sat and listened to them practice. And then they asked us, would you like to come? Would you like to come back next week? And maybe you could learn some Minyo with us. We said, oh, we would be so thrilled. Thank you. Or domo arigato, right? So for the next few months, we went back every week and studied Minyo. And then we learned a couple of songs. And then they took us up to the mountains to sing in front of a judge and then at the end, after being judged, sitting at a microphone, singing my first Minyo song, I was granted a license to sing Minyo. Roberto Johnson, you see that? Roberto N. Johnson. And it's the Miyazaki-ken Minyo Association. It's like, wow, all of a sudden I felt like official. It was so, I felt like overwhelmed. It was so kind of them, this little group, to take us in and make the effort to get us scheduled to sing for a judge and get us certified.
So Bob-san, what did you have to do to get the special license? I mean, this is the real deal. This is an official Japanese license from Higashi, right?
Yeah.
To be able to sing Minyo.
Right. Well, you had to demonstrate an entry level of proficiency. And after the months with I think it was a couple of months with the group studying, then we learned a couple of songs, and you had to then sing in front of the judge at least one song, and to demonstrate your proficiency. And so that was, fortunately, I grew up in Boise, Idaho, and sang in the choir with my father. So I was singing, and then I sang in choirs in school, so I could sing. Um, but certainly learning the Minyo was a different style of singing. I'll sing for you the song that I sang in front of the judge, but
Can we go to the next page and discuss kind of what all this is?
yeah, no, this is interesting. Um, this is the song that I sang for the judges. Now I wanted to introduce. If you can imagine, this is the music we studied by, and I thought, when I first saw this, I thought, what? This does not look like a music score I've ever seen. And I also play the cello, and I played the piano. So I thought, wait, where's this come from? But then they said, well, wait, Johnson son, you just have to look at the bottom there. It's do re mi fa sol la ti do. Oh, okay, I know that. And so you follow the tune by where the music and the words are written on the page according to that scale. I thought, okay, well that's not too hard. Actually, that's kind of logical. And so there you go. And go to the next page though. I'm going to come back to that. But this song was one of the first songs I might have heard him singing it, from the street. It's Karisen Giri Uta, and which is cut and dry, which is referring to the farmers that cut the rice, or the lumberjacks that cut the trees. So, because Minyo, in many of the songs are tied to work, a vacation, and so they're in the beginning they were often just sung alone, solo, because you can imagine this a lumberjack or a lumberjack just up in the mountains singing. So I'm going to sing this song for you to begin with, to give you a flavor of what I might have first heard. Koko no yama no karibosha sunda yo. 明日は田んぼいいねかろうかよ。So it's like, wait a minute, this sounds so amazing to hear this kind of singing. Never anything like it I'd heard in America. And that's what drew me to that, knock on that door and ask permission to come and listen. But this is the Koko no Yama no Karibosha. Again, this is a very short song about the lumberjack who's cutting the trees, and then he finishes with his work. You have to cut the trees, and then you let them. There has to be a curing period to just leave them to dry, and then that gives him time to then come back to the rice fields. So then the second part is the story about working in the rice fields. So, anyway, that's a long story to the Minyo, but after or growing up, I played the cello, and I was thinking about why I was drawn to that, why I was drawn to this music. And as Yoshi said, I'm an attorney now, and I came from Boise, came out to Atlanta because I had a friend that was here who was working for Arthur Anderson, and he said, "Bob, there's hundreds of Japanese companies here in Georgia. You should come and work for a law firm here in Georgia." So I did some research, and sure enough, we now have more than 600 Japanese companies here in Georgia who employ more than 40,000 Georgians. So sure enough, at the time there had been when Jimmy Carter was governor, he started recruiting the Japanese companies, and boy, when one came, YKK was one of the first ones, Murata. Then they all figured out that Georgia was a great place to come to set up their businesses as kind of a center of Eastern distribution. Well, I came out here again to practice, to work for a firm that actually ended up having an office in Tokyo. So I had the opportunity also to travel to Tokyo on work related. But as I was growing up, I played the cello, and I was thinking about why this music was so connected to me. And it turns out that the cello is actually a very melancholic instrument, and it's a combination of melancholy and joy, just like the Minyo, melancholic, but yet conveys a message of the spirit of the spirit of the hardworking Japanese. So I remember uh, since coming to Atlanta, I've been active with the Japan American Society for all these years, and have traveled to Japan with the last 5 governors on delegations. And most recently, 3 years ago, we started a Japanese dual language immersion school at International Charter Academy of Georgia. So, and now I started as a member of the board and now chairman of the International Charter Academy. It's a public school. We used to have a private school in town many years, Seigakuin. Seigakuin unfortunately had to close, and then we decided it was a good time for us to open a public school to allow for this education to go on. And one of the things that I love to do is play for the children of the International Charter Academy of Georgia. We have 200 students, and so now my nickname at the International Charter is actually Yo-Yo Bob. They haven't actually heard me sing Minyo yet, so that's next on the list. But one of the songs that I learned as a young man playing the cello was Pablo Casal's Song of the Birds. And Pablo Casals was asked what the actual Song of the Birds is, and he replied, "Peace, peace, peace." 3 words. That's the Song of the Birds. And so at the school, our mission is to educate young ambassadors of peace. So we've adopted this as our kind of theme song. Now, what's interesting is that this Song of the Birds, notice how it's based on a folk song as well. And so it's almost very similar to the Koko no Yama. So you can imagine I grew up playing this song, and then when I heard the Minyo, boom, the connection came. So I'm going to play a little of Pablo Casal's Song of the Birds. We get a little bonus, not just Minyo today. How'd that go? So, yes. I can hear the clapping. Okay, so that has been playing that song as a young man. Then when I heard that Minyo, I thought that's one reason why this is familiar to me. And so it was a real opportunity to get to, and in fact, to get to study, to take the lessons with this group and to be taught how to sing Minyo. And I guess that's one point I want to make about this is that, that's one thing anybody who has been to Japan, and if you haven't been to Japan, one thing that you will learn is that when a foreigner is willing, the Japanese are so, they're so willing as well to share, to share their culture and to share their language. I'm so thrilled to work with the International Charter Academy of Georgia because with this dual language Japanese English immersion, because what you learn when you learn the Japanese language is that you learn that the language is the heart of the people and heart of the culture of Japan. And so there's so much beauty about the beautiful culture in Japan. So learning the language helps open that heart. And then the Minyo on top of that, well, maybe we can say is the heart and soul. You start to experience the soul of Japan, because you really are talking about songs that were written and sung hundreds and hundreds of years ago. So the school again is such a great opportunity for kids to be introduced to the language again, which is the heart of the people.
So, Bob-san, we're going to open up the floor for questions from the audience. But as we wait for more questions to come in, can you tell us one or maybe a couple of funny stories with all your adventures in Japan, whether it was back when you were studying the Minyo and you were there for your mission, or maybe more recently with your trips with the SUS conferences or other delegation trips to Japan?
Yes. Well, I first wanted to say that I first wanted to make a note about my hapi, the hapi that I'm wearing. The group that we're studying with actually made this hapi for us, because not only did we sing for a judge, but it happened to be that right after we sang for the judges and were certified, then we were invited to sing in a Minyo Taikai, a conference, which was hundreds of Minyo singers coming in from all over Kyushu or Miyazaki area. And they made this hapi. And so I still have this hapi. It's 30 years old. 30 years ago, the group made this hapi for me. I always say, I love to wear this hapi because it makes me happy. Anyway, it's a bad joke. So yes, one funny experience. How about when I got on the train from Fukuoka to Kagoshima? First of all, I was kind of happy that I had a long train ride, because I thought, I was very anxious and nervous about actually getting on the ground. But I'll never forget that learning how to, the counting in Japanese is, you have to learn ippon, ippo. There's different counters for different things. And I remember on the train, the lady came by selling oranges, and I just was mute because I didn't know how I didn't know how the right way to ask for just one orange. So it's a little crazy. All I had to do was say one orange, and she certainly would have understood. But it's just sometimes in a new place, you're a little scared. But going back, yeah, Yoshi mentioned also with the Sue's conference, another funny story. I mentioned I've traveled to Japan now with 5 governors, the last 5 governors. And we stay at generally when we're in Tokyo, we go to Tokyo and Osaka usually. We stay at the Imperial Hotel. And I'll never forget one night at the Imperial Hotel, there was somebody just walked in my room in the middle of the night. And I thought, oh my goodness. I said, hey, you got the wrong room. And they apologized profusely and then they left. Somebody from the hotel was actually with them. So the next morning I was getting ready for the conference, came out of my room and there was an assistant manager standing outside my door with a newspaper to really just tell me he was so sorry about what happened. And I thought, well, gee, I wonder how long he had been waiting outside this door. But that's the heart of the Japanese people. If there's any offense, they don't want offense, and conflict is also they don't like conflict. And that's another reason about lawyers, by the way. I will add that there are a lot of lawyers in Japan, but most of the lawyers, if you go to study law in Japan, after you finish that initial education, most of them don't go on to become actually practicing attorneys. Most of them will go to work in-house in companies. So the companies actually have a lot of individuals who've been educated in the law, but again, most are not practicing or litigating such because for many years, again, Japanese are not such a litigious society. More and more as they become more westernized, there is more litigation. But that's an interesting note about lawyers in Japan as well. Okay, sorry.
I think you said that there are more lawyers in Atlanta than the entire country of Japan, right?
Oh, did I actually say that? I'm not sure about those numbers.
So wanted to ask our programs committee co-chair, Jim Hoadley, who's on, there was a question about why do you need a license to sing in Japan? So Professor Hoadley, you're a sensei as well, a different kind of sensei, but can you tell us why do you need a license in Japan to sing?
Well, you don't technically need a license. You don't have to have a license. It's more like a certification from the government that you are qualified. Minyo is a traditional art, so traditional art forms have licensing by the government. It's a way to certify that you know what you're talking about. And it's not always the government either. It's often, as it was for Bob, it was an association of Minyo, for Minyo, as opposed to an actual government. But they've got it for everything from calligraphy. Chopsticks is one that I think chopstick usage was a surprising one for me. Origami, there is an origami certification that you can get. And sometimes they follow the order that martial arts has. So like you can technically be, because they don't use the words, the belt colors, they just refer to it as like Kyu or Dan. So like everything up to what we consider to be a black belt is like everything before that is a Kyu, and then black belt and onward is a Dan. So you could be like a second degree black belt in chopsticks, which I think is kind of funny. So entertaining to think about.
So Bob Sensei could have been Ichidan, Nidan, Sandan, or maybe a Judan Minyo, I guess.
Well, on the certificate, they were using it. They weren't using the Dan format. It was at least I didn't. It was a show, but it wasn't Dan. I don't think. But
well, I did want to. How about a quick one verse of the song that we sang at the Minyo Taikai?
Let's go for it. Minyo Taikai no.
Yeah. Now this was, again, I mentioned that the Minyo, there's different Minyo for different areas. And this was the Hyuga. This was the city of Hyuga in Miyazaki Ken. This is Hyuga Kobiki kobiki, kobiki uta. So yeah, kobiki uta, and it's a kobiki is a cutting. Again, this is a mountain song. So you can imagine the man in the mountains cutting the trees down. You can just imagine him singing this. Yare Yamade koga naku Yamashi no kojaro Hoka ni naku koga aru janashi. Hachitiko, patiko. Those are birds.
Now we come full circle to your three birds, right? So
yeah. The song of the birds. But this is again a cry of the man in the mountain, the lumberjack in the mountain who's cutting the trees, and the only cry of children, the only children that cry in the mountains are the children of these mountain workers, because of course all the other children, they're home and they're home safe, but he's kind of lamenting that their job is so hard and the children have to be in the mountains, and it's harder than the next verse talks about being harder than even the job of the carpenter. But then the last verse, I will say, the last verse says, Sumiba Miyako. So meaning wherever we live, it's our castle. So again, they're lamenting the hardness of it, but at the same time, they're celebrating the greatness of their work. So there you go. That's the essence of Minyo.
Bob-san, thank you so much. We truly commend your passion and your love for Japan and all things Japanese. So, but I think we have someone from the audience, the co-chair of JapanFest and the chair of the Japan American Society, which you used to be a couple of terms ago, Mr. Al Hodge, who wants to say a few words for you.
I do, thank you. And I want to give a special thank you to Bob Johnson. Bob Johnson and the Baker Donaldson firm have been wonderful supporters of Japan American Society of Georgia, JapanFest, the Shokokai, so many of the partners that we depend upon. And an invitation to all of our non-members that are participating, we invite you to join. There are a lot of programs that we do, and in fact, robust programming has been added despite the pandemic. And so please participate. We welcome and thank the members, of course, who have already been participating. And also, of course, as always, special thanks to our professional staff, Yoshi-san, Lily-san, everyone, Rai-san, everyone who has been participating with JapanFest and the ongoing efforts, the multiple efforts that create our special relationships and the real special bond between Georgia and Japan.
Thank you.
Wasshoi, one word.
Thank you. Wasshoi, one word. Well, Bob-san, do you want to take us out? Any messages of hope, words of wisdom for all of our viewers?
You know, my love for all things Japan. You know, after the Japanese have been so great over the last 50 years to go out to the world and promoting peace, really promoting peace through business and sharing of culture, sharing of their business and culture. And again, we have such a large amount of Japanese investment here in the U.S. But again, it is when you can combine your own personal values with what you're doing professionally, it's a real blessing. And I think that's the position we all want to be in, is where we can promote and appreciate all that we have, and then share for the goodness of everybody. How about that? So pursue your passion and love it.
Wonderful. I can't say any better. So thank you so much, Bob-san. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining our special adventures of Bob Sensei in Japan.